You are listening to an American Free Press podcast.
Joining me on the line is Hunter Jameson, the chairman of the nonprofit Santa Monica Nativity Scene Committee. Hunter, thanks for joining us today.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
Hunter, I saw an article just recently titled Christmas Canceled in Santa Monica, and another one headlined Santa Monica Forced to Cancel Christmas After Atheist Campaigner Launches Protest Against Town's Holiday Decorations. I want to get to that in great detail in a moment. Before we do, for the benefit of the listeners, can you give them a little bit of background about who you are and about the organization?
Well, the organization, as you mentioned, a nonprofit organization, it goes back to the early 80s. The scenes, the displays themselves, the multiple nativity scenes displays, that's one thing that makes them unusual and distinctive, is that there are many scenes surrounding the birth of Christ. There are actually usually 14, rather than just the single nativity scene of the manger that we often associate with a nativity scene. It's there, but so are 13 others. The committee, as I say, goes back to the early 80s. The scenes began in 1953, and there was a good deal of community involvement, but the Chamber of Commerce and the city were the leading, really, sponsors of the scene, or groups that really helped it along with churches. And in an earlier era, we had a number of atheists become active and try to force separation of the city from anything that could be considered religious, including this community celebration enjoyed by many. So the city withdrew its support. The Chamber of Commerce hit some rough patches financially as well, and the committee began in 1983-84 as a group dedicated to funding and presenting the scenes. It's made up of churches, and the Santa Monica Police Officers Association also is a member, and we solicit donations from private individuals. Churches are very helpful, churches that are the members of the organization, and businesses too, very helpful in providing the funding for this strictly voluntary, community-based, really grassroots organization. I've been active with it for going back to 1992 or so, 94, shortly after I moved to Southern California from my native Oregon, and I've been the chairman of the committee since 2004.
And of course, Santa Monica, I've been there several times. It's a beautiful town. Population, I'm looking here at Wikipedia, it looks like it's about 90,000.
But it's a fairly small geographical area. It is pretty much built up, and finding open spaces in it to display an undertaking of the size of the nativity scenes, for example, is fairly difficult, because it is definitely a very urban setting. The seaside location for Santa Monica makes it attractive, and it is very prosperous, and it has a fairly high opinion of itself, I think we could say.
And it says here in Wikipedia that Santa Monica is home to executives and Hollywood celebrities, among others, and it is a mixture of affluent, single-family neighborhoods, renters, surfers, young professionals, and students. So it is quite an eclectic mix there.
It is. I mean, there are some poor people who've managed to hang on, but let's just say the move towards gentrification is certainly alive and well in Santa Monica. If you don't live there already, you have to be very well off to be able to buy any property there. Of course, the situation is difficult in much of Southern California. Much of California, not every town by any means, but certainly in Southern California it is. In Santa Monica, it's an expensive place.
Right, and for the listeners, it's about 15 miles from downtown LA and about 120 miles northwest of San Diego. The display itself has been active since 1953, is that right?
That is correct, and this year will be the 60th display. It has been 14 scenes, as I mentioned, starting with the Annunciation of the angel telling Mary that she'll be the mother of the Savior, and going along with the other events that preceded Jesus' birth, and then the manger scene, and then the flight to Egypt, and eventually the final scene of this display is the boy Jesus at home with his father, his earthly father, Joseph, in the carpenter shop.
What kind of crowd does the nativity scene draw usually?
It's hard to know because it sits there on the typically approximately 1 block length that it takes to display it, and people can go by there by car because we have had in the past a parking lane roped off or sectioned off for cars to drive along if they wish to go slowly and look at the scenes. And then being in the city park, and the Palisades Park, which is on the bluffs overlooking the ocean, a very beautiful setting, makes it very much available to pedestrians as well. In the early years, when it was very, very popular, I've looked back at newspaper articles that said that some estimates were as high as 750,000 people in a year. I don't think we get that kind of a draw, but it's really hard to say. But many, many people do visit it, and I've had many people come up to me and say this is something they enjoyed from their youth. They're now parents and even grandparents who are bringing a second or third generation to see the scenes. So it unites generations and brings people from outside Santa Monica. Still, it was a very big tourist draw in earlier years, and I think people still enjoy seeing it who come from out of town. Of course, many people come to Santa Monica as tourists too, because it is a seaside resort. And, well, if you call it a resort, it is a seaside town, and it has a number of amenities, shopping and dining, etc.
It was in a city park, right?
That is correct, yes.
And is was the right word?
Yes, the city council did not stand up for this, as they say, nearly 60-year-old tradition. It did not stand up for free speech or the free exercise of religion. It kowtowed to a very small, vocal, out-of-town group of people with an ideological bias against the scenes, a group of people that said they were atheists, and made use of a change in rules that came into effect last year to use a new lottery to corner most of the spaces available, most of the 2 blocks in space total available for displays at Christmas time. And although they won actually 1 3/4 blocks, this group of people working together left 1 full block of that space completely empty. Even though it violated the rules, their machinations were clear, and they made very clear in their pronouncement that their main goal was not so much to mount scenes of their own. The displays they did put up generally were pretty minimal efforts, but their main goal was to have the nativity scenes ejected from the park. And if they were ejected too, that's all right with them. They just wanted us out of the park. And as I say, they were able to use this rule change and a lottery, which was used to divvy up spaces for their own benefit, and reduce us from 14 scenes last year to 3 booths. And the Lord was gracious to help us get that amount of space in the drawing. And because of the controversy that ensued over those occurrences and some of the derogatory signs that the atheists put up about religion, the city council, thinking that a battle over the park, as one of the city councilmen put it, was not fitting for the city, decided that it would take an easy way out and just ban all unattended displays from the park, period. And the time when they had been allowed was at Christmas time, but the city last spring removed the provision in the ordinance that allowed the displays at Christmas time to be done in the park, and they're not allowed. Unattended displays are not allowed in any park in Santa Monica now. So we went to court because this is a clear violation of a freedom of speech. This is a violation of the right to freedom of religious practice, free exercise of religion, and unfortunately the federal district judge ruled on the 19th of February that this year that we made a motion to have the scenes in the park this year while the lawsuit continued towards its final end. This motion to have the scenes be allowed in the park for this year was refused. That's not the end of the case. There will be another motion heard on December 3rd by the city to dismiss the case entirely. Now, it did not really meet our needs to appeal the denial of the scenes for this year because we would not have a timely opportunity even if another court ruled in our favor to mount the scenes. It was just there's no time left. However, if the judge, as would seem very likely, goes ahead to rule to dismiss the case on December 3rd, then we may very well appeal to the appeals court and continue the litigation.
And as you said, it was a federal judge, Audrey B. Collins. You said before you used the word unattended.
Yes.
What if the display was attended?
I don't think in Palisades Park it makes any difference. Palisades Park has certain rules that apply to it that are not necessarily applicable elsewhere, but I don't think the attended or unattended makes a great deal of difference in Palisades Park. At least it's not the displays such as we have, which are large, 18 feet long each booth, with life-size mannequins and decorations and are elaborate to put up. I mean, it takes 5 to 7 hours to erect the wooden booths, and it takes maybe 4 to 5 hours depending on the weather and the number of people available to take down the wooden structures, and then that's not counting the time to put the mannequins and other decorations inside the booths. that's not the kind of thing that you can be putting up and taking down daily. In Palisades Park, that is, I think, what we would be faced with if we wanted to go that route, but that's just obviously impossible for us. If we wanted to go that route and have someone standing by them. In Palisades Park, which is the historic home and where the unit scenes have always been, I don't believe that the attended difference is really very significant.
And you also mentioned that it was a small vocal group of out-of-towners, so these people are not even from Santa Monica, and I guess the main character here that is mentioned in pretty much all the articles is a guy named Damon Vick. Is that right?
Yes, a Burbank set designer.
Do you know much about him at all?
He's very active in atheist circles and has presented the nativity scenes according to his own statement for a good many years as he passed through town on occasion to work in various locales or conduct a paper route. He's not liked the nativity scenes for a long time. And his machinations have allowed him to, indeed, temporarily at least, get rid of this community tradition loved by many from its historic home in Palisades Park.
Yeah, I was going to say, why don't you just live and let live, let people enjoy?
We've had atheists that have said to us and have appeared on telephone call-in shows that I've appeared on that have said exactly that. Well, why not let them do it? It's all right. Let them have their scenes. It isn't just for Christians only. We've had in hearings before the city council, a woman from the Carrington organization spoke up for the scenes, and Jews have spoken up for them. Also, a menorah has been typically exhibited for the last quarter century along there next door to the nativity scenes, just in the same block, and it, of course, will be gone too. So we've had community support from across a wide range of people across the spectrum trying to support the scenes.
I see there's a Facebook page here called United Against Damon Vick.
Oh, well, I wasn't sure that this is the one that takes a combative view, I guess. I wasn't familiar with this particular one, but I knew we did have pages out there, I guess, that support us.
Right. Is there some kind of petition going across town?
There was a petition which was presented to the city council and seemed to have no effect on them. We had several, I forget how many we had. I think at least, I don't know if he got up to 2,000 or 3,000. I'm sorry, I just can't remember. There have been so many things that have gone on this past year, but it unfortunately did not seem to sway the city council from their cowardly approach to rolling over when they face a little bit of opposition to this community tradition.
If the city council had ruled in your favor, how would that have affected the judge in this matter?
It wouldn't have gone to court.
And how many members are on that city council?
There are 7.
Do you happen to know anything about the individuals that are on the city council, their religious preferences or anything else?
I'm not fully aware. I know 2 or 3 are Roman Catholics.
So they would have had to have a simple majority in order to rule in your favor?
Yes, they vote twice on ordinance changes, which this was, and both times there were 5 present and 2 absent. And Bobby Driver, who was retiring from the city council, was absent both times and did not vote. The other 6, at one time or another, all voted against the nativity scenes. I say at one time or another because each of the 2 meetings there were 5, but there was a rotation there, and so one of the persons who wasn't at the first meeting was at the second meeting. The first meeting is kind of the public discussion, and they take a vote after it. The second meeting is no discussion. It's just an official formalization of the vote, and is the official vote that puts an ordinance, if it's an ordinance, on the books or changes it. But as I say, 6 of the 7 people at one time or another on the council voted against it.
Do you know if any of them are of the Jewish faith?
I do not think that they are. Not to my knowledge.
I hope Damon Vick, if that's even his real name, I hope.
To the best of our understanding, it is, yes. Mm-hmm.
I hope he's very happy about it.
I think he probably is. He had said that although he would be sorry that some of his supporters would not be able to exhibit their displays, this was after they managed to put together some fairly anemic displays, as I said last year. There were 2 or 3 that were fairly sizable, but then there were several that were basically of the lawn side variety. That he said that there would be a few people that would be sorry not to be able to put something up, but on the whole, we would be pleased that the nativity scenes were gone.
Hunter Jameson, the chairman of the Santa Monica Nativity Scene Committee, I want to thank you so much for the time you spent explaining all this to listeners, and looking forward to speaking to you in the future when this case unfolds, and hopefully it'll be in a favorable fashion for you.
Well, thank you. We are looking for a spot on private property. We hope that we will be able to present the scenes this year. We're not quite ready to announce a spot yet, but we are looking.
Thanks, Hunter.
Thank you.